So hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today in this video we're going to be continuing JavaScript for Advanced series. And sorry for not making videos in up to 2 weeks because I've been changing Linux distros, and for my preference I find Arch Linux the most comfortable to work with, so I've switched to Arch Linux. And this is not actually Arch, this is Manjaro. So if you don't know about Manjaro Linux, it's type of Linux based on Arch. So if I type in neofetch, you can see all of the configuration of my stuff here. So now, sorry for that talk, but let's proceed towards our topic. So the topic is, today we're going to be learning about constructor functions. So as I told you in the previous video of promises, that there are something called constructors, and promise as well is a constructor. So what do you mean by constructor? Constructor functions are basically those type of function that starts with a capital letter and perform some tasks that you want to do. They automate tasks for you. So how do they automate tasks for you? I'll give you a clear example about that. So let's go ahead and move on to our project here. So let's go, I can run code, which is just going to run code up here. So I don't want that. I can go with code dot. Now this is gonna work because my code is running here. Yes, I do trust the authors, and yep, my Visual Studio Code is loaded. So let's proceed talking about constructor functions. So constructor functions are basically like those kind of functions that actually help you to create and automate stuff for you. Let's take an example that you want to create a object and list of users. So in your application, you have a social media application, and whenever the user logs in, you want to check if that user is following some certain kind of criteria. So in this case, the criteria is going to be your username, password, and email. So if that exists, then only let the user go, and if that does not exist, that means you don't want the user to actually register. So, and yep, I forgot to tell you one thing. Constructor functions return a object, so they create an object for you. So let me go ahead, solidify that. So index.js, and then this index.js, I'm going to just increase my view width a little bit. And now, so creating a constructor functions and function is really easy. As I said, it starts with a capital letter. So I'll simply go for a function name. So it's going to be function. So, and another thing is that we cannot use the ES6 syntax because ES6 syntax is forbidden somehow for making constructors, so you cannot use that. And then password. Now these are the three basic things that we require. And now to create the username, what do we require? So we require something called this. So if you don't know about this, basically this is like a global stuff. Okay, let me just explain you with a code example. So if I console.log, there's a this keyword that actually points towards the global object. So let me open up my terminal, and then I say node index.js. Now you can see that it prints nothing. It prints nothing. But this is why, because we are running this inside of node.js. But let's run this inside of our index.html. Okay, index.html. Now this global object in this is nothing. It's just an empty string, empty object. But if we add that into our web application, let's say script and then index.js, and we can simply remove this and say chapter 3. And now I go with the live server. I hope it should spin. But what we can do is we can simply run live. A live server is not installed, so node index.js. Oh no, node, it's npm, sorry. npm install -g, it's a global package, live server. So I'll go for sudo because it asks for permission to install global packages. Enter my password, and that's starting to run the server. Just wait a few. Why am I doing this is because I'm going to be using NeoVim, so it's going to be hard for me to use live server in there, so I just simply installed the live server package in Node.js live server, and if I do dot, it's going to open up my index.js here. Now this is going to be the default stuff. Okay, now this is a empty page, but inside of the console we can see that a window object has been printed. Now this window object is actually the global object. Okay, this is here trying to go for the global object, but if you are inside of a constructor function, that this keyword is referring to the global object itself. So global object is going to be the user schema, and then inside the user schema, whatever the value that we would like to set. This is a constructor keyword. Okay, this is going to construct. So what do I want to construct? I want to construct a username, so I'll go for equals to, and this username object over here, it's going to be associated with the value of username here. And then if I go for another, this dot email, and then the email is going to be the email. It's basically like creating objects. So first it's creating the key, and then it's putting the value that I want. So it's in the argument username. This dot password is equals to password honest. And now what it's returning, so it's returning a object. So it's returning this, and this contains all of the stuff that is necessary or required. So if I go for console.log the user schema, what are we going to see? We're going to see that user schema is a function. So this is a function, not an object. It's not converting into an object until we call it. So to call it, what do we do? We don't need this return here as well, because this is simply going to return an object. We know that. Even if you put return a string, even if you say return string, it's going to skip this line and actually return a object. So that is it. Now let's go ahead and create a new user. So I want to create a new user called user1, and then if I go for user schema, now we don't simply call this user schema with its name. We need to call it with the new keyword. So new is actually, what it's saying is that create a new user. It's saying create a new user one called user1, and then use this to create a new user. Check this if this user fulfills the schema, and then you can simply proceed. So let's go for the username, Safal, and then I'll go for the email. Email is going to be gmail.com, and then the password we can go for 123. And then if we go console.log the user one over here, we can see that user schema, and we have the email, password, and then the username. So that is how we create schemas. That is how we create constructors. So constructor, as I told you, it actually has a real life example while you're working with Node.js and all of that stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about JavaScript for now. And vanilla JavaScript, you can see that there's a function, and that is a constructor function that starts with a capital keyword. If I just say user schema and I go with small u's, then you can see one thing here. It says user schema, but the rule is that you cannot create a constructor function without a capital function. It should always be capital letters. So let me go and search that rule. Why should functions be functions start with a uppercase letter? So since constructor functions are just regular functions, the only characteristic is that new is being defined as part of the call. Native JavaScript functions being with an uppercase letter to distinguish those functions that constructor those functions are not. So yeah, that actually defines that it just basically to define the users that it's a constructor, not a normal function. It's a constructor function that's creating an object, that's returning an object. It's not doing much more than that. It's just a constructor function. So even if you go with small, it doesn't actually change. So I didn't know that. I learned something new today. I hope you also learned something new today. And I would give you a task of creating a application where you will see this user schema, and then you create a bunch of users with this user schema, and you can create a login or registration system. That's up to you. But in the next video, in this next series, I'm going to be making JavaScript in JavaScript for real life projects. And in the JavaScript for real life projects, we're going to be building a registration application, and we're going to be using user schema here. We're going to be using constructors, we're going to be using promises, API calls, and much more in the real life project. So stay tuned in our YouTube channel, and I'll be consistent. I'll upload 2 videos or 3 videos a week. I'll try my best to. And if I don't, please don't be angry at me, because I have a lot of work to do and also busy in my life. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care everyone, and goodbye. And before I go, just please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any queries, you can join our Discord server. It's free to join, free to ask questions and all that stuff. And also, we're going to be creating our new website. You can check up on our Discord server. The website is going to be there, but it's not yet published, but we will publish it and we'll let you know. So I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care everyone, and goodbye.
How? Yeah, I can talk about it.